When you're doing something creative, you have to have tools, you have to have time, and you have to have technique. But those are practical problems. What happens if you've got your tools, you've blocked away some time, and you've learned enough to kind of know what you're doing, and then now this is a scary place to be. They call it writer's block or creative block, and it comes from a place of fear. Sometimes, surprisingly, it can get worse as you get older and more experienced because you learn more about what is possible and you get what is called decision fatigue. You've got so many options in front of you, you don't even know where to start. Every road that you begin to travel down, you can see the worst case scenario or a way that it's already been done, and you stop traveling down that road before you even begin. Fear is the enemy in this situation, and I'm going to talk about different ways that I combat it. Pretty much every project I work on goes through 4 different stages, and it's really important to be really clear with yourself each step of the way what stage you're in. Inspiration, experimentation, refinement, and finishing. Let's start with inspiration. Everyone draws inspiration from different places. This works differently for everybody, but I want to be serious to combat the idea that you should only be creating art when you're quote-unquote feeling inspired. Sure, this happens sometimes. You sit down and you get just a wave of excitement, but more often than not, inspiration comes from effort. It comes from a place of struggle, and it rarely comes from nowhere out of the blue. I think some people are waiting until they don't feel the fear anymore, and they're calling that inspiration. Pfft. Embrace the unknown. If you're lucky enough to be working on a collaborative project, you should be drawing inspiration from your team members. Ask them, what are they into? If it's a horror project, ask them what are their favorite 3 horror films, and make a list down and watch a whole bunch of them. Draw inspiration from what you connect with in there. But what if it's a personal project? Nobody's telling you what to do. This is entirely self-directed. What do you do then? Well, this is harder, but the tools are basically the same. Consume new media. And in my opinion, it's really important to challenge yourself in this stage. Push yourself out of your comfort zone. If you're a musician, listen to old music, new music, listen to experimental genres or genres that you don't normally listen to. Turn on the radio, turn on random new Spotify playlists. Take notes about what you like, what you're connecting to, what is new and exciting. And if you find something that really sort of moves you, hold on to that. That's precious. While you're doing this, you should start to get a feel for what you're currently inspired by. It's always changing a little bit. It's never going to be the same as it was 5 years ago. Once you start to get a sense for what is exciting you at the moment, you can research how those artists made their art. What tools did they use? Can you get somewhere close without spending a whole bunch of money? Now you've got a bit of direction, we can move on to the next stage, experimentation. Most importantly in the experimentation section, don't analyze your work. Don't judge your work, allow yourself to play. I want to be clear, in this stage you are not hard on your work and you're very much not hard on yourself. In this stage you don't even really ask yourself, is this good or not? Experiment, try new things. What is it about the inspiration that you like? Every single piece of art has countless elements that interweave it together. Try to pull them out, try to parse them out, and find your own way of doing something similar. I think that this is a stage that a lot of people overlook, and maybe they're scared of feeling that they don't know what they're doing. Maybe they're scared of being in uncharted territory. They immediately rush to the next stage without really pushing and testing what they're doing. Just the first half of an idea, they just move into the next stage. Personally, when I'm making music, I make little tiny models. I make short elements, 4 bars, 8 bars, 1 bar. I use different bass or no melody or heavy melody, different instruments, lots of sound, different ranges, and I'll just work really, really quickly on an idea and then I'll move on and I'll try a different idea. None of them are particularly good during these early stages, but that voice in your head that asks yourself, is this good, needs to be pushed away for now. That's for later. You're just playing, trying stuff out. Now, I usually, if I have the time, I try to take a break from the work at this point. Hopefully at this point you've got a collection of sketched out ideas, maybe 5, 10, 15 ideas that are all getting at the same concept or the same source of inspiration. Put it to the side, take a break from it, and then we move on to our next stage, refinement. So now you can really begin hard on the work. Importantly, you are not hard on yourself, you are hard on the work. These are two very different things. I need you to allow this to be completely distanced in your mind. You are still you. The work is separate of you. I strongly recommend that you take your time with refinement. The experimentation stage can happen quickly, and it often should, but the refinement stage shouldn't be rushed. Over the next few days or weeks after experimenting, come back and check on your work. Now you can start to judge it. This is really important. You're judging your work. The work is not a reflection of you. They are just little ideas that you're playing with. Is something working? Great. Hold on to that. Something not working? Okay, move it to the side and you can come back to it later. For music, I like to mute stuff that's not working. I move it away and then maybe I'll use it. I probably won't. Make small changes when you're refining. You need to trust yourself, trust the past self who made this idea, and trust the future self who's going to listen to these changes. Take your time. Over time, your decisions will be shaping the work. You will be building things up and tearing things down. If something isn't working, you need the confidence to get rid of it. Even if it seems like a big decision, try to see what happens when you get rid of it. Test your assumptions about how much is absolutely necessary. This stage should be really about getting rid of ideas, moving things around, rather than writing new ideas. Most of everything we do has too much going on. We are sanding things down. If you didn't have clear objectives for the work, you can let it bloom and shape the way it happens in this stage. If you came in with a clear goal, you need to be keeping that in mind, as there's a chance that your work could veer away from the goal at this stage. If you didn't have a clear objective and you're letting it bloom and take its own shape, as you're refining, you should be asking yourself, what is this really about? What is this work? You didn't have to ask that during the experimentation stage, but now's the time you need to push yourself to answering that. Once you answer that question, hold on to that answer, and you need to be getting rid of any element that doesn't support that answer. Now, during this stage, I like to ask myself, is this any good? Like, is this a good idea? I take my time answering that, but if it's been days and days or weeks and weeks, and you still don't know the answer, or you're still feeling like, nah, maybe not, it might not be any good. Maybe you should go back to the drawing board, go back to the experimentation stage, try out some new ideas. If you think it's good, you've refined it enough, you have a clear objective at this point in mind, you can move on to the next stage, finishing. So this is the scariest stage for me, and often the hardest, because the previous ones were all about possibilities. We were keeping open the idea that maybe we'll come back to something. This is the one where we are gluing everything down and we're making our decisions permanent. We are removing possibilities. The most important part about this stage is that the objective is clear. If you're still unsure of the work, you need to spend more time in the refinement stage. You're not ready for the finishing. If you're under deadline, I'm sorry. Try to get an objective as quickly as you can. Even if you're somewhat unsure, you need to start making decisions and sticking to them. If you aren't under a deadline, keep refining. Take your time. Now is when you need to be really hard on the work. There isn't going to be any more undoing. These decisions are final. Does every element support your objective? Do they work together? Are there any mistakes? Things that you said to yourself, oh, I'll fix that later. There isn't a later. You need to do that now. The thing is, at this point, you shouldn't even be asking yourself if you like the work. That ship has sailed. That was under previous stages to ask those questions. You made your objective. You've refined it. You know what it is. You decided to finish. Now you have to see it through. Now you're asking yourself, does it do what it's supposed to? Does every element support the objective? This is a very technical stage, and you shouldn't be too emotional about it, as little as you can possibly be. Fix what's broken. Get rid of anything that isn't working. bring the stuff into focus that is working, push other stuff down that doesn't support the objective. Clean it up for the audience. Really put what is important in front of them and bring the lesser stuff into the background. That's pretty much it. Let's sum it up. Inspiration. This comes from any place, but I would encourage you to push yourself out of your comfort zone when looking for new sources of inspiration. Experimentation. This is a stage with as little judgment as possible. You're just trying stuff out. You don't care about the final objective. You don't care about the way it's all going to come together. Refinement. This is when you're making your decisions. You're putting your elements together. You're making your real decisions about whether something is good or not, and whether this whole thing is worth finishing or not. And then finishing. This is when we clean everything up, we follow our objectives to the end, and we clean up anything that isn't helping the overall goal. That's pretty much it. I try to keep this as short as possible, so let me know in the comments if you want me to do more videos like this. I can talk about practical ways that I do this with music, and then I can also talk about just a daily habit, sort of ways to fit these steps into your daily life.